Hey guys, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hat Tuesday number 34, Hat Tuesday number 34. And I already have Robert in the meeting. Let me bring on Robert. Robert, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm well, thank you.
All right, excellent, excellent. I got a lot of good feedback about our show last week. So I thank you again.
Oh, you're welcome. It was fun.
All right, excellent. And we got Paul in the wake. Let's bring in Paul. Paul, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing good. Yeah, you?
Oh,
Hi,
doing
Robert.
well, doing well. Good to see you,
Okay.
Paul.
Thank you.
I was just telling Robert about the great feedback we got on the show from last week. So it's great. Like I appreciate the folks in the network contributing the topics, and I think we got another good one today. But before that, I just want to make sure there's no any other relevant hat news that any of you want to share. Any recent events or?
I guess this hat you can see in the back here was an interesting one. I had a customer who he's into the Western scene, and he's got several hats, including an El Presidente Stetson, which I understand to be a very expensive hat. I don't know. I've never seen one, but it seems to be, from what I read up about it, quite a nice hat. And he sent over this hat. Was a Western style, typical cowboy hat, basically, with a lot of sort of moth deposits, and it wasn't in a particularly good state, quite dirty, but he wanted to try and breathe some more life into it. So he came back to me with the Stetson Eureka, whilst that's a wool hat, he liked that style, which is very much like this. So this is what's been produced, which it's I actually quite like the crown on this. It's quite a nice broad crown. I've got a wide head myself, and I thought this might be one to make. But he didn't want the turned up edges. He just wanted the flat brim, and he wanted the grosgrain on here. This is it's not an expensive. I mean, it was what 4 or 5 hours, I guess, to go through this, but I repounced it. I've actually increased the size, so put in a new sweatband for him, increased the size by about half a size, half a centimeter. All in all, I think the gentleman should get another sort of 20 or 30 years out of this. It's the color has come up so well, so I think the base Stetson felt must have been quite good on this one.
Yeah, awesome. I was going to ask about the sweatband, because the sweatband definitely looked looked new and looked great.
The one that was in there was just disintegrating. I don't know what Stetson used, but it certainly isn't a particularly good quality leather, in my opinion. As they get older, it sort of seems to powder and disintegrates.
We can talk about that later, because I have some thoughts on that.
Good.
I'll be interested to hear it. All right, Robert.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of oil, I guess let's jump in. I
have something I wanted to relate regarding. It was on Saturday, and it was a very good customer. One of my few lady customers. I think she's bought 6 or 8 hats from me. And last year she bought a Panama, and within about a month or 2 of wearing it, she got a stain on the ribbon, and she asked if she could bring it back and replace the ribbon, because she tried to eliminate the stain and made it worse. So I said, sure, drop by. Well, it took her almost a year to to bring it back, but she brought it back on Saturday, and so we actually decided to put a different ribbon on it, give her a new look. And I asked her, I said, well, don't you have some shopping to do, or can you go away and come back? And she said, no, I'm fine. And so from my perspective, it was weird, because for me, sewing is a very solitary activity. And I'm not used to having somebody sitting there watching me, for one thing. And second of all, wanting to chat. So for the first time in my life, I had an audience, and I had to sew and chat at the same time. So I weathered the storm. But the interesting thing, and the reason I wanted to share this, is it's interesting, because I mean, I have lots of hat customers, but I don't know I don't know really what they know. And as it turns out, she was quite content to wait while I sewed the new ribbon on the hat because she thought it was going to take 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh,
In her mind, I'd snip some ribbon, strap it on the hat, and away she would go.
yeah,
And she had no idea. And throughout, she would drop into the conversation. I mean, she would apologize for the imposition.
Yeah.
And then secondly, was like she was just gobsmacked at the time it took and the attention to detail that was required.
Yeah.
Because like in her view, I mean, she loves my hats, but she had no idea. You know, she didn't she was asking me, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And it's like, because she and this is interesting, Paul, too, because she didn't really notice and certainly didn't appreciate the fact that all my stitches are hidden.
yeah,
Right.
In her world, it was like I just slap the ribbon on the hat, throw in a few tack stitches, and away she go. You know, and I actually did it in a little less time than it normally takes me, but it's like it was just under an hour and a half, right, from beginning to end, to prep the ribbon so I just thought it was fascinating. I mean, he had no idea.
No, I think most people don't. I mean, I find that as well, Robert. And the gentleman that I did this hat for didn't realise that I put sort of 5 hours yesterday into it, and an hour or two, about an hour and a half actually, before just cleaning it. And you do it because I do it because I love it, and I really enjoy it. And it's nice to get some money for it, but by no means is it a get rich quick. But I mean, it's very low. In fact, you made a comment, I think, Robert, on the messages, didn't you? That you know, the hourly rate is very low that we actually managed to obtain. Really, yeah.
I think that's why a lot of hat makers don't do repairs, restorations, because it's not a high enough return for their, you know, for our finite amount of time.
Yeah, I spoke with this gentleman about the fact that, you know, it would be only slightly more expensive for me to actually make him a new one, because the time it takes to deconstruct the hat and clean the felt, you might as well take a new felt and use that as a blank canvas. It's going to perform better, and it's going to actually look better than the one you've got. But you know, he still wanted it warts and all, with all the holes and things that are in there. But I thought that was quite interesting, because if I'd known that myself, I probably would have said, okay, just talk to me a little bit more about the new hat and how that's done, you know, and so on. But you know, so far he's over the moon. He hasn't obviously seen the hat yet, but it's been sized to his head, and so it would be like a custom fit for him and so on. But he never really knew that it was going to take that long to do it.
Yeah. I guess in some ways it's flattering, because it's like we just
you make it look easy.
We work our magic, you know, and it's like, and they don't really understand that it's like there's no magic involved. It's just slogging work, you know.
But it really does speak to the fact of how folks might view the potential value proposition, right? I mean, you know, if they're thinking, and I can definitely understand, right? You don't know what you don't know. And obviously you have other hats out there that are being mass produced. So that's going to color a lot of opinions about what goes into some of these, you know, some of this process. But that right there, I guess, you know, I think that's when you guys are in a unique perspective, you know, unique situation to be able to kind of slowly but surely educate the customer as to what they're getting and what they paid for. And I think that just enhances it for me. And once I learn, you know, what goes into it, I'm like, wow, what a deal, right?
Yeah, it's interesting, because we talk about brand development in general business. We talk about brand development, and we talk about educating the consumer. And you know, educating the consumer, you know, comes at a cost, because you know, it normally involves advertising and speaking to them, and time and effort. And it's, you know, but it's something that we have to do in the hat making business, because so many generations. It's probably 2 generations away in the UK. I guess the same in America, from when the country was wearing fedoras and trilbies on a regular basis. And so it's amazing how quickly they go out of fashion and they lose momentum. And we're, you know, just doing our best to recreate that. In fact, today I reached out to a young lady on Facebook, I think, or she was looking for some help with a particular hat. It was very heavily shellacked and it was a wool felt and what have you. And she said she struggled to find out how to learn hatting. I said, well, I'm willing to help. I've got a 3D printer. I'm willing to help you to get 1 or 2 blocks made and see how that goes. And I said, and by the way, there's this gentleman called Robert that you must get his hat making course. So you never know, Robert. I might be on commission yet.
Yeah. I at least owe you a pint.
Well, you know, that's a good English saying, Robert. But I mean, yeah, she's an ideal candidate for it. And I just said, look, that's what I did. You know, I took a few secondhand hats apart, and then I bought into Robert's system and videos, and still refer to them. You know.
Yeah, I
think that's a good segue to our topic.
Yeah, agreed.
I had a thought, and I want to voice it before I forget it. And it's I want to preface my remarks by saying that, like, within the hat world, both in the the factory production and the custom, it's when I began as a collector, I started with lower end hats.
Right.
And I think largely because it's like I didn't know. I didn't discover the world of custom hats until I was like 20 years into my collecting. And so my initial hats were the Canadian company. I think the ones that Kevin buys his hats from.
Yeah, McGill, I believe.
McGill, Robert Hall. I actually still have a Biltmore. I still have my original Akubra, and I thought they were really nice hats, because to me they were a step up from the really cheap Stetsons that I had bought before that, and it's like I loved wearing them because they look good. I got compliments on them. So I just wanted to preface that by saying that, because I am highly critical of the factory made hats.
Yeah.
But I wanted to, in a sense, it's like I want to be critical of them, but I don't want to denigrate them, because they really do fill a niche.
Correct.
And I think I might have said it earlier in one of our messenger threads. It's like, it's kind of a 6 foot test, and it's from 6 foot away, can you tell the difference?
Right.
And often, no, you can't.
Right.
The only thing that I can really discern is my wife often, if she sees a guy walking down the street with a fedora, and she'll poke me and she'll say, "Oh, there's a hat. What do you think of that?" And from 10 feet away, and I often tell her, "No, it's a cheap wool hat."
Right.
I can tell wool felt from fur felt. But after that, if a guy's wearing a nice Biltmore hat from 6 feet away, it's a good looking hat.
Yeah.
That starts with which is what Robert kind of Robert mentioned, and then Paul kind of started with the customer in terms of material quality. Like that right there, we talked about the difference between a wool, you obviously your rabbit fur, and then you have things like beaver and whatnot. But yeah, just interested in maybe that might be a good starting point in terms of, because I feel like that's for myself that I know off the bat, right? Like, and you mentioned the test. I know light does different things to different types of felt. I can see how it shines off of a beaver, and that gives you some of that those indicators. But yeah, I just want to make sure we start there maybe, and then maybe we can roll into where else you guys want to delve into.
I have my first point is that it's like my biggest complaint about about factory produced hats is that, as an outsider, because I've never discussed this with a hat factory owner, but it seems to me that the only thing that makes sense is that they're making a hat to hit a price point.
Right.
And so for you and I, Paul, so when you look at the level of componentry or the trimmings that we put into our hats, the difference between poor quality and top quality is like we're talking dollars. We're not talking tens of dollars, hundreds of. We're talking dollars.
Right.
It's a silly compromise, Robert, isn't it, that they seem to go through?
That's what. Yes, it drives me crazy, and it's. I have 3 contemporary Stetsons.
Yeah.
They're the 150th anniversary editions. One of them is 100% beaver, and felt wise, I really like the felt. It's very good quality felt.
Yeah.
And this is their 150th. This is a flagship hat for them, and the quality of the trimmings in that hat is terrible.
Yeah.
And for, I don't know, $10 or $20 more, they could have a top quality hat. But cheap polyester ribbon.
Yeah.
I have a Stetsonian in brown and a Stetsonian in gray in the caribou, and both of them have their generic black ribbon.
Right.
So it's kind of like the Model T. It's like you can have any color ribbon you want as long as it's black. Right. And it's cheap polyester. The linings are glued in and not carefully glued in. It's like somebody with a brush is like, onto the next station, and it's terrible. And then the third thing, which takes me to the leather, the leather sweatband in a hat made in 2015.
Yeah.
I replaced it after 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what I think is, like, I'm not a leather guy, but the only thing that makes sense is, and you see it quite often where they advertise genuine leather.
Right.
But when I looked into it, it's like what that means is it's the leather that they make from the sludge left after the tanning process.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like it is. You can call it leather because that's where it came from.
Yeah.
But it's like it's reconstituted, and that's why it falls apart.
Crazy. Yeah.
And it's like I buy my sweatbands from. It's a small operation, but he sells to a lot of the big boys. And I pay $5 at the factory gate for my sweats.
Yeah.
And they're top quality. They're veg tanned. They're roan leather, soft, and it's like I'm paying $5. And probably at the Stetson level, if you're buying them by the hundreds of thousands, God knows how much cheaper you could get them at.
Yeah.
And so what are they paying for these genuine leather ones?
Right.
$2. So they're saving a couple of bucks.
Right.
But it's interesting about the leather, though, Robert, because when I was looking for them in the UK, I bought them from Guy Morse and a few others, Baxter Hart Brown, and a few others that actors, distributors, or wholesalers, if you like, in the UK. And the quality of leather was really quite poor, in my opinion. It was more like this genuine leather, And Christie's, you would have thought a UK brand like Christie's, which is known around the world, they use in their mid to lower ends, the quality of the sweatband was really down very low. But I must admit, I'm afraid to say in many ways that I do use the polyester ribbon because I can only seem to get, and I've bought lots of vintage ribbon, but it's only black or different shades of dark blue. And to get something that's quite like this color, for instance, has been a real challenge. So, if you know anywhere I can get decent quality, vintage ribbon or anything around, then I'll buy a quantity of it. But otherwise, it's a compromise, unfortunately, for me.
Yeah.
The downside is working with poly is just it's horrific. It's so difficult working with it as opposed to a cotton rayon blend.
Right.
Yeah, it is unstable under the steam and heat. So, and what I think you're referring to, Robert, is when you put the sweatband on, and if you enter steam onto it just to shrink it to the actual the crown, you can over steam it, and then it goes bang, if you like, and it really opens up and it's horrible. And when that happens, you've just gone and lost 45 minutes of your time in putting this lovely band together, and stitching it and so on. So it doesn't happen often, but it does happen.
Yeah. I know that one, and it's like, it's probably it's in the top 3 frustrating things to happen, because it only happens at the end.
Yeah.
When you're done, right? But just to wrap that up, it's like, I think that's my biggest complaint about the factory produced hats, is that it doesn't make any sense to me in those areas where they cut corners for so few dollars.
Right.
It's like, for why,
Yeah, my only thing is, and I don't know if this applies because I don't think we're dealing with the same kind of volume, but you see that with the automobile makers sometimes. Because I know I've had some cars, and usually they're American-made cars. I hate to bag on them, but you start seeing some pieces. You're like, wow, this piece failed, and then you look at the piece, and it's like it's made of plastic, and it's because a bean counter that did the actuary or the accounting said, okay, over X million number of units sold, that little piece that is going to cost us just a fraction of who knows, is going to come out and save us X amount of money. And you're sitting there like, wow, like the whole car is useless without this little plastic piece, but you're going to go and do that because the math makes sense. And that's the only way I can think that they justify that somehow. I don't know.
Yeah. There was in my tour of the distilleries, I did a tour at Le Gavelin, and there was a piece of machinery there that it was built and installed in 1963. Paul, it was built in Leeds back in the day when Britain built stuff, and it has been in continuous operation every day since 1963.
Wow.
Now they maintain it properly. But at the same time, that's a long time for a piece of machinery. And the tour guide said, unfortunately, the company went bankrupt in the 70s. And people sort of gasped. And she said, well, think about it. If you're making machinery that never breaks down,
right,
and you're selling into a finite market, duh.
Right.
So they could have used a little planned obsolescence.
Yeah, there you go, planned obsolescence. That's the other,
because the quality of their equipment was the master of their demise. So it's.
I wonder whether it's worth mentioning, Luke, that with the mass-produced hats, the way that they're produced is very much on a metal block rather than the wooden blocks that Robert and I use, and they take the felt caplin, which I mean, this is a beaver felt, but it's this basic felt, and then they prop it on top of the metal form, if you like, and then the top comes down, which then forms the crown shape and the dimples and the brim, which takes out obviously a lot of the hand and personal touch of actually forming the hat. And so what you've then got is hand finishing of the hat, rather than what custom hatters do, which is going, and we'll come on to that. But a lot of people, I find, they ask me, what's the difference with what Lock & Co. or one of the hatters like Christie's make, and you then explain to them that they'll take 50 felts, put them in the machine, bang them out in different sizes, and then start hand finishing them using whatever, some of them very low quality trimmings that go onto the hat. Some of the linings here in the UK are very disappointing. When you think about the cost of the materials in a lining, it's very low. And why on earth they don't go to a better quality, I just don't know. But hey,
guys, how's it going?
Hello, the Tux. Good to see you.
I've got my custom hat. This week is our auction. This coming Saturday night. So I wanted to wear it to support them, counting those down. So I've got 3 hats here. One is
I just wanted to say one thing about that. It's something that a lot of people want, but they don't realize at the time, because that factory pressed in crease, that's permanent.
Right. So that might be
so if you ever want to adjust it or change it on a most factory produced hats, it's very difficult, because you're dealing with a lower grade felt that has a lot of stiffener in it in order to bolster that felt to make up for the lack of density. And you steam the crease in, that's permanent. You cannot steam that out without at least the vestiges of a shadow crease.
Right.
So, and that's probably this, because it's very hard. This is a Stetson called a drifter, but it's described as a 4X. But this is their Buffalo series, so it's called Buffalo Felt. I don't know if that's just wool or what that is, but it's very stiff, definitely like machine pressed in there. I don't think I'm ever going to change the shape of that.
Yeah, you better like it.
And I better like it. Yeah.
And then once you get,
you guys talk about. Can I ask you about sweatbands, because you guys were talking about that.
We've covered
this. This is like, I mean, this side of it feels really good, the part that's against your head, but like the inside of it, I mean, it almost feels like a paper texture. And I have no idea who makes. I mean, this has got Stetson's name on it, but I don't know where this is made or who made it. I know that Mr. Mendez checked this hat for me. There's a little sticker there about him. This, you guys mentioned, this is glued in the headliner. Is that what you call it?
Yeah, we've covered that.
So yeah, that's the sweatband here. This one's from McGill, or this is a KTG Roadstar. And I'll preface like what Robert said earlier. Like, I love these hats and they serve a purpose. I'm very proud of the value of these hats. This was drastically different than this, and I've got one of Paul's as well. But very proud of them, and I wear them in different circumstances. And I'm a KTG fan club member. You know, I love Kevin and what he's done, and he's part of selling that just as much as the hat itself. But his sweatbands, I don't know if Robert or Paul have ever been able to, or if you have a KTG, but it's a very thin sweatband. Now I will say I really like it. It's like super supple, very soft. I will say that it's kind of thin. So what I noticed, I don't know if you, but right there on the inside where I guess that is stitched in there, it's so thin sometimes that this is where my forehead goes there. When I take it off sometimes, because it's so thin, I'll actually have just a slight imprint on my head, but on the stitches from the inside. So it's interesting that it's so thin that it almost like presses through the sweatband. But if you want a soft sweatband, these KTGs are very, very soft, and they are very, very comfortable on that sweatband. It's real thin. And then let me just hit PJMs before you comment on it. But by far, this is the best sweatband out of the three that I have in front of me. You can just tell, I mean, you feel it, and it's like, okay, this is like really leather, like good quality leather, I think. I mean, from my ignorant consumer eyes, it just feels like a lot better. The inside of it, just, I mean, it's even like, it doesn't have that paper feel. It's all kind of like rough side of a leather. but it's a nice thickness. It's very, very comfortable. I can tell that it's built to last, but it's not so stiff that it's like, it's not comfortable on your head. Now, Paul stitches his liner in. KTG, if I mentioned or not, it was glued. The headliner was glued in. Right. And then, so before you comment on that, but I do want to hear your comments on those 3 different ones. You mentioned polyester. Are you talking about this? The head rib? The hat rib. Okay. Gotcha. So is that similar from what, because this has got like a horse hairband. So PJMs and KTGs, is that hat band similar, or are they both polyester? Is that what you were saying?
I would think, well, I know mine, I think it was on that one. Sometimes I mix the vintage with the polyester a bit if I've got vintage in a color or whatever, because the vintage is finished off better around the top and bottom of the ribbon. But I think that's polyester. Yeah. I don't know about KTG. I've not had a KTG, so I've not had a chance to look.
They come out of McGill.
Right.
Now these are both rabbit, but this feels heavier. Paul probably has a spec somewhere, but this is definitely kind of a heavier, thicker.
That was about a 150, 170 gram. It was more of a medium dress weight, if you like, rather than a Western weight.
This feels a little thinner. And I got, this is an open crown. It comes open crown. I just shaped it, but as far as the feel, it's close to similar, other than thickness. But anyway, that's what I've got in front of me so far. What you guys discussed with sweatband, hat liner, the ribbon. All
right.
Cool.
Let's see here. And we talked a little bit about kind of like the structure and shape, in terms of, what you're able to do with that shape on some of these hats. In terms of finishing details, anything else that's noteworthy? We started talking about that as well as the sweatband.
I think the edging around the brim is, when you look at, and I mean, I'm sure, Robert, you're far more akin with this than I am. But what I've done here is stitch it around the brim and then fold it over and stitch it underneath, and it gets a really nice sort of rolled effect on the brim, which is rather nice. And of course, that's quite difficult to get in a production hat, and this is obviously something I've just been playing with. But when you start getting into putting material around the brim and so on, you're getting into shaping and dressing the hats, in a way that you personally want, which is the custom way. But it's the trim around the edge, which I think is, you can have it very basic where it's just folded over and stitched, or you can have it a bit more fancy where you actually hide the stitches.
Yeah, and I know Robert definitely has opinion. I've seen some of the comments, on the custom about the brim binding or brim trim, as I would always refer to it.
There's, I think actually, on a factory-made hat, I don't have a ton of experience in that area, but in general, it's good. It's basic, but it's good because they have binding machines, which are essentially operator proof. You don't even have to prep the ribbon. It just feeds it in and 10 minutes it's done. So with production hats, that's the one area that can be better than a custom hat, because I've seen some custom hats where the brim binding is not great. Gotcha. Or the seam is like 5 degrees off center, or the stitching is uneven, because it's probably, in my opinion, it's probably the most difficult skill to perfect as a custom hat maker.
I think so. I think what I found quite challenging, actually, Robert, was on the back of the hat, actually doing this this link of the two pieces. And now, having watched your video and done a few others, I go round with the ribbon, measure it out, and then sew it together, and then do it again and get it on there.
Yeah.
And that's a much better finish. I can't remember what I did on that one actually, Nathan, but certainly of late I've been working, improving my joins. Let's put it that way. It's in fact I've gone over a few hats and redone them. In particular, this is an 80% beaver sort of open road, and I wear this myself. So I've gone over and done it again, and it's so much more satisfying when you suddenly perfect something that has been a little bit of a challenge, let's say. And I'm certainly learning. I'm way behind Robert in terms of my education of hat making, but love the journey, and when you can see the results, it's nice. But in the UK, I took the decision that I wasn't going to charge as much for my hats as others in the UK do, on the basis that I treat it as part of my education. And maybe one day I'll get to a point where I will charge more for my hats. But in the meantime, I'd much rather sell volume and get the experience of making them. But I don't compromise on the felts. I buy them from Fepsa, as I've said before, and I think that's having a good felt is a good base for a hat.
I will say that there's a 1.5 year difference between my open road and this one. And I can tell that he's gotten better at that overlap there. Because this looks super good. So does this one, but I can just tell. Like now, you're saying, "Hey, look at this!" Like now, now the KTG, and maybe this is what Robert was saying, but it looks like a machine. I don't know. I don't know how it's done, but it looks very factory-ish, Yeah. But yeah, that's some of the trade-off I think we've talked about before. But do you want kind of the cookie cutter, or do you want evidence of handmade? So, but it looks like Paul is progressing in his sewing skills.
Well, he upgraded the sweatband quality. Those are things that, like I said, as you start on the journey, and that's what it is. Everybody's hat makers and hat enthusiasts just alike. You pick up these things, especially as you interact. So it's been nice seeing Paul and Robert kind of interact and before our very eyes and see that influence. So hey, that's what it's all about.
I think one thing before we close up the discussion on the factory hats, that it came up in the messenger thread yesterday. I think Morgan brought it up, and that touching on the if we can do it, just touching briefly on the whole X's as a quality designation. And that's something that I think any hat maker and hat collector is a point of a sore point, because it's so misleading, bordering on false advertising. It's selling bullshit, really. There's a YouTube video by I forget his name, but he's the owner of Bigger Hats, BIGG.
Jeff Bigger, I believe his name is.
And he talks about the whole X quality sham. So if anyone's interested, that's a really good source, because essentially I think to begin and end the discussion is just understanding that the X's don't mean anything.
I'd echo that, because did I send you the copy from Fepsa? I think I did, Robert, didn't I? The explanation that they give, but it took me 18 months or so to get Fepsa's explanation of their system of the different types of felts, and even then I'm still confused. So
but I think for the most part, I've never bought direct from Fepsa. I buy from Tim at Pure Beaver, and any of my distributors, and I think this is true. I buy from wherever, because there's not that many of them. I buy from where everybody else buys them, and the X's are not used. It's like when I buy a felt, they're either selling me 100% beaver, a 50-50, an 80-20, but it's like, I know what the content is because they tell me. They don't say, "Oh, that's a 4X."
Right.
Got it.
Tim uses the X system, and I'm not sure if it's what he made up or if it's the FEPSA, but like he'll sell a blend of a 4X beaver, which means it's 4% beaver fiber.
Right.
I think he sells some 6X, which means 6%. So it's straightforward. It has meaning, and it's not designed to baffle you.
Yeah, I think one thing is that we make that assumption is that obviously, which is the first one, which is they're not comparable across who's giving that designation. But it seems like folks have gone even further, and it's not even comparable within the same source. In which case, at that point, you start dealing. It starts reminding me of the old horsepower wars, when folks would kind of do these little weird things to get these numbers, because it was all marketing speak to sell more units, and then you got some ridiculous numbers at the end of the day that nobody believes.
And the fact that the fact that
I'm wrong,
for instance, won't, it's like they'll sell you a 4X hat, but they will not tell you what that means.
Yeah,
right.
So if you're buying,
I think that's safe to say in the mass produced, you get X's, but there's no telling what that means.
Right.
But like for Robert and Paul, is it, hey, this is a rabbit hat, or this is like a percentage of beaver, percentage of rabbit? Because in the custom world, you're not going to see the X's. That's safe to say.
Well, we get the X's from the supplier, but and I usually go through with the customer what they're using the hat for, and a lot of customers just want 100X because they want 100X. Well, okay,
right.
But a lot of the time, there's different gradings of that, but I haven't actually gone out and put it inside the hat and told people, that's exactly what it is. I've just gone through it with them, that they can see that it's different to their wool hat or whatever, and that's about it, really.
Yeah.
Same for you, Robert, as well. Would you let the customer know, like, hey, this is this blend or that blend, or maybe there's a special request if that's particular one they wanted or whatnot?
Exactly the same as Paul. It's part of the process of when a customer steps forward to order a hat. The first thing is a discussion of like how, where, and when are you going to wear it? To what purpose? And then because most customers, unless they're hat collectors, but most of my customers, they're not sophisticated in their felt knowledge, so they need to be educated. Right. So we'll have a discussion on, what is their budget? What are they using the hat for? So that we can come up with a felt that fits their needs and fits their budget. So I sell a lot of rabbit, and I'm a big fan of rabbit felt.
Yeah.
So I think it makes an awesome hat, and particularly in this day and age, because the price between beaver and rabbit is continuing to separate. Because when I first started, the difference between a rabbit felt and a beaver felt, we were talking about $25. So it was negligible.
Yeah. And
now I just noticed the other day on the 95-gram FEPSA, they're now $285. Yeah. I used to sell a beaver hat complete for $285.
Oh,
right.
So before I'm gonna jump off, but I got one more question, and I'll just take it off air. So just the rabbit, because we talked about bands and materials for that, and hat liners. If you're getting a rabbit felt hat, are they all the same? Where do these rabbits come from? Is there a better quality rabbit, not lower quality rabbit? So yeah, just kind of maybe scratch the surface of that. Cause I've got these two rabbits here, and I can tell the difference of the weight just because of the feel. But and then as far as like touching, they're similar, But anyway, yeah, just I'll take that answer off air. Good to see you guys. Hope the auction goes well. I will certainly let you know as soon as I know how that ended up. And thanks for you guys' knowledge and input. And have a safe week.
Sounds good.
Great.
Take it easy, Nathan.
Yeah,
I think we can discuss the felt quality under the custom hat
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the choices that custom hats are
Yeah.
available. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of, like, we can move into the customs.
Or given that it's 11:45.
We want to maybe table this one for.
I was just wondering, in order to
do
do it justice, would it make sense to table this and treat this as a separate
Yeah, I like that idea.
session?
Yeah.
Because otherwise, like, we've got 15 minutes to cover probably a topic that is much bigger than the factory hat topic.
Yeah.
Should we just answer Nathan's question about the rabbit felt, and then sort of top it off there, and then as you say, you can do it again as part of the
yeah, I like that
custom thing.
It's like every factory, their felts have a different feel to them,
right?
And well, first of all, it's like you've got the different weights. So, like, to compare a FEPSA 120 gram rabbit, versus, say, the Hust 160 gram rabbit, both dress weight, they're two really very, very different things. But going back to the source, my understanding is, when I wrote the article on felts way back when I started at Hat Talk magazine, the majority of rabbit fur fiber comes from the European rabbit as food.
Right.
So in a sense, you could make a claim that rabbit is a great fiber, because it's essentially taking something that would be tossed.
It's a byproduct, I guess,
and turning it into something useful.
Yeah.
I never realized that the Europeans ate that many damn rabbits, but I guess.
Well, we don't, but yeah. But the other thing is the stiffness. How the introduction of stiffener. I mean, when you look at, I mean, you take Borsalino felts, for instance, versus FEPSA, versus some of the American and even the Australian felts, like the Akubra felts. You can get the same weight of felts, in theory, with different levels of stiffness, and it can feel totally different. So it almost comes down to you get a felt in, and I buy a number just off pattern, don't really know what I'm going to get, job lot or whatever. But then you feel the felt, and you sort of feel a design that will work with the stiffness of that felt. And I know it sounds unusual or silly, and I wouldn't have believed it a few months or even years back when I first started. But now, you get that feeling, what style of hat would best perform when making.
Yeah.
I think I watched a really brief video this morning from FEPSA, and how they talked about when they stiffen a felt at their factory, to them it's a precision step in their process. And I think the FEPSA factory is probably the most modern in the world, and it's probably like, because they doubled their production a couple of years ago, it's probably state of the art in terms of felting. So they can like absolutely dial in the amount of stiffness. Where I found when I toured the Winchester factory, which was essentially like stepping back into 100 years ago. I was quite amazed at their stiffening station, and how unprecise it was. And after seeing that, I could understand how maybe the batches are the same, but like batch to batch, like a batch made on Monday might be stiffened differently than a batch made on Friday, just because it seemed to me like this is so imprecise.
Right.
Yeah. I had an experience where I was buying in a 100% beaver 260 gram weight Western felt for a gentleman, and it was in its basic form, it was a soft felt, and I explained to FEPSA what style of hat I was going to make, and where I needed the stiffness and everything. And they just dialed in the stiffness to a perfect degree. I mean, it was an absolute pleasure. So it can be done in their factory, but you need to discuss with them what you're actually going to do with the felt.
Yeah, which is what Tim at Pure Beaver does. So I think a lot of his hats might not necessarily be available at the factory level, because his felts are dialed into the North American market, markets depending on dress or Western. And yeah, so and then the other thing is you can dial in differing stiffness for the crown and for the brim.
Yes, yeah.
You know, so it's really, going back to Nathan's question, it's really difficult to it's like, yes, it's rabbit, but it's like apples and oranges comparison, because there's so many variables involved that you know, and that's why I like to keep inventory, so that if I'm dealing with a customer, like I can present him with the hat in his color, and he can choose, rather than having to. I always get a bit nervous if I'm ordering a one of to fit a particular color, just it's, you know, because of the variance.
I think the other thing is that when you're pouncing a hat, and you know, using the different levels of sandpaper, that the color changes, because of course you start to you know, you during the process you may well come across some of the stiffener, and you can get that back by steaming it and so on, and spraying, and so it's not a problem. But the color and the feel of the felt really changes. And I mean, I don't know whether you can see it, but on this is the beaver hat here. You know, it's got some marks on it, which are, this is to do with the spraying of the stiffener, and these are really you know, very stiff Western weight felts. But this and this hasn't been, I think it's been pounced a little bit. Let me just have a quick look. It's been pounced a little bit, but I'll go over that, you know, and it will come up really smooth, and a very nice felt when it's when it's made. But in its base form, when a customer were to see that, it's not quite the same as when it ends up being made into a hat.
Yeah, and I feel like that sounds like, to me, you know, in terms of the consistency, right? Like Robert mentioned, in terms of, you know, depending, I think I've got to imagine it's got to be helpful for a hat maker to kind of know that the felt is going to react the same way, right? I mean, right? There's like, I think, a little bit level of predictability that you get when you have a little bit more consistency in your processes, at least from the hat maker's perspective, because you know exactly how it's going to react.
Well, I wish we did.
Yeah, there is. I guess the bad news around that is that it within manufacturers, it can vary batch to batch.
Right.
And it's like, generally I have really great success with FEPSA, in that they don't mottle. There I can sort of pounce them freely. Well, I mean, with the 95 gram, they come 1,200 a pounce, so it's like I don't even have to touch them.
Right.
But I had a batch where they were prone to the dye flashing off, which is far worse, because that ruins the felt.
Right.
I can't sell that. And it's so, but it only came up this one time with this one batch. So you know, my suspicions are there's something happened in the dye process that, and it might be just that one color is more susceptible to it in general, but it's like there's an absence of sort of hard and fast rules, or there is, and until there isn't.
Right.
And when it isn't, that's when you ruin a felt and you shed a few tears and move on.
Right.
Fortunately, I mean, I don't know, I've probably ruined about half a dozen or more, but I know about the tears bit, because you can really, it's always the one that you don't want to ruin, you know, it's and then you've got to wait, you know, a while to get the replacement felt in or something. Yeah, I guess it's part of the experience, fun, whatever you want to call it. But as you learn more and more, you know, you can see Fepsa felts come in different sizes. The caplins come in different sizes as well. So you know, you can sometimes have a very small caplin, and somebody wants it in a much larger head. You know, you can stretch it over the block because you can wet down the felt and do all this sort of thing. But that is another thing that comes into the process. So there's so much of the dimensions and that are involved and come into play when building a hat that I certainly never thought that it would, and in the volume that it does, but it does.
Yeah, and it's always there was one this morning on the Custom Hat Makers Facebook page, and a woman had posted. She actually had taken the time to post a video, and she was working with wool, and she was getting puckers in the crown.
Yeah.
After blocking, and she was like, "Help!" And I mean, the only thing what's causing that is that like she has too much felt. Her cape line is too big for the size of hat she's trying to make. And
so, that's the lady I reached out to actually, Robert. And I did a personal message through to her and said, look, don't worry, I'm happy to help you if you'd like help. And we've had a couple of messages backwards and forwards, and I don't know whether she's going to reach out. I did invite her onto the show to have a look to see what we do and have a look at some of the videos. So who knows? But you know, you can offer, and that's about all you can do. And if these, you know, these less experienced hatters want some limited help from myself, but more help from yourself, you know, so be it. But I think really, honestly, and I know I'll go on about it, but Robert's videos are a really, really good baseline for anybody that's thinking about understanding the process of custom hat making. Even if you're not a hat maker yourself, if you can get the chance to have a look at those videos because you want to buy a decent hat, it would help you understand the amount of work that goes through. It's a real pleasure to watch as well.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you.
Hey, I love it.
But the other thing I thought of I think, as hard as it was, I'm actually thankful that for the first couple of years I was like self-taught, left to my own devices, which forced me to come up with solutions, because it's the one thing that I didn't fully anticipate, which, and it's like you probably can't, is, you know, all of the because hat making in theory is a B, C, D process, except with the anomalies, you know, and it's like, okay, how do I deal with this? You know, I've never come across this, and having to like when you're faced with a problem and there's no solution to be found and you have to come up with it, in the middle of it, it's not much fun. But when you do come to the solution that, you know, that you had to create, you had to come, it's like it's incredibly satisfying. And I find that it's, you know, it's like anything, one success builds on another. And so you reach a point where the anomalies don't scare you as much as they once did, because it's just another hurdle to go over, and you've already gone over a dozen ones, so this is just another hurdle. And then the learning is in like trying to fix it, you know, and coming up with the 6 ways that, well, that didn't work, you know, so now what do I do? So now you got to stretch yourself and you got to come up with the 7th way, and hopefully that's the one that will do the trick. But it's like, you know, I really look back on my journey, and it's like I really, really value those times. And it's kind of fun, you know. It's like you get to make shit up, and it's like, well, let's see what, you know. And it's like the worst thing that can happen is I ruin another felt.
Yeah,
and it makes for a good story.
Yeah, you have a very big hat collection for yourself, because I had a gentleman the other day, and he said to me, he said, Paul, I love your hats, but why are they all size 59.5 or 60? And I said, well, I'll tell you a little story. I usually make the hats to fit me, because if all else fails, nobody likes them, I can wear them. And then he said, now I understand. I said, because if you notice, I put on there, they're available in other sizes and so on, other colors and whatever.
It makes perfect
but I did
sense.
think that was funny. Yeah.
And then you found Nathan.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
All right.
He's a 59.5, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, gentlemen, I will close out. We're just over an hour. It looks like we have the bones for our next episode, where we'll talk specifically about custom-made hats. And I saw some of Robert's notes. He's got some good stuff in there. And so, yeah, I'm going to thank Robert. I'm going to thank Paul and Nathan for joining us on screen. I'll thank my my faithful moderators, Josh and Ian, for joining us, as well as Jedi and Mr. Bond, and Mr. James Bond, my fellow Virginian. But yeah, join us next week. And in the meantime, you know how I'm going to close this out, right? He's like, support all these good folks in the Good Luke's Network, support all the good folks outside the Good Luke's Network. But even if you don't, we won't get anybody after you, but even if you don't support, the one thing you got to do, no matter what, is you got to stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody.